You are listening to the Getting Lucky Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I am your host, Lucky Robert Curtis. I am joined by English Tom Burton.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. I really love that you're embracing that now.
Yep.
I feel like it was just a matter of dogged tenacity on my part before you embraced your chimney, chim-chiroo background.
Chimney, chim-chiroo.
I don't know.
Well, it is appropriate.
It is. It is. Because this card that we're going to be talking about is in London, England.
Da, 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 da,
Is that God Save the Queen?
No, that's Land of Hope and Glory.
Oh, I don't know. Clearly
it's known as the graduation song in the US.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. I knew it from somewhere.
You stole it from us.
That's creepy. So UFC on Fuel TV, Renan Barao versus Michael McDonald. This is actually a huge event. There are 12 fights. That's enormous. Normally most UFC events go 10 or 11. This one has 12. 6 on the Facebook card, 6 on the Fuel TV card. You will not have, most of the average MMA fans will not have heard of most of these people. So we'll go through this quickly and painlessly, and then English Tom will return next week to do our review show in 2 parts. 1 part prelims, 2nd part main card. Any questions? Great, I didn't think so. Prelim card, flyweight Phil Harris versus Ulysses Gomez.
Well, if we look at these two, they're just 2 grapplers, and my rule is, when you got 2 grapplers together, this is either going to be an amazing grappling match on the floor, or it's going to be an awful striking match where nobody wants to test each other's submission. But in this one, I'm probably going to have to go for the Ulysses Gomez, because I just like his name. I love it. Although his nickname is pretty crap, Useless. Imagine trying to say Ulysses Useless Gomez in 1 second. That is horrid for a ring announcer.
But why would you want to be known as useless?
Yeah, it's really setting the bar low for yourself, isn't it?
I guess so. And then, you could surprise people by, you go to a movie and they say, this movie sucks, and you watch it and you're like, no, it's actually kind of good. But if you were to watch it and think this movie is supposed to be awesome, you're like, no, this movie sucks. So maybe, like your point is, I'm also going to go with Ulysses Gomez because he just came off of a fight with John Moraga, and I thought he looked pretty good the first 2 rounds. And then Moraga turned it on. Moraga, former guest, now title contender. Hopefully we can get him back on. I'm also going to go with Ulysses Gomez. Next fight, a bantamweight matchup between Vaughn Lee versus Montanobu Tezuka. Now, Vaughn is kind of a different guy. Most people have their name Vaughn, V-A-U-G-H-N. He has an extra A in there, so I don't know if I should say his name Vaughn or Vaughan.
No, I think it's Vaughn. I spell my name differently with a H in Tom, but you don't hear me calling myself Thom. No, it's just Vaughn.
Dude, it'd be cool if you did.
Also, Vaughn sounds like a car manufacturer.
Kinda?
Yeah.
Yeah, kinda?
It does.
Maybe like a dental supplier? Vaughn Dental?
We are really going off topic on this.
But maybe, a little bit. Vaughn has fought some great guys. He's fought Dillashaw, Carriasso, Pickett, David Lee, lost all of them. He doesn't really have a top-level victory.
He does have a submission win against Japanese legend Kid Yamamoto, the only time he's been submitted.
Was Kid Yamamoto on the far side or near side of 85 years old?
Far side. Well, no, he's not old. He's just he suffered horrific injuries in his career, and I don't think he's kind of like Shogun, pretty much.
Yeah. So in fighter years, he's like a horse that needs a bullet put in his head.
Yeah.
Tezuka just fought Caceres in the UFC China card, and he lost via split decision. I'm gonna tip Tezuka for this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably tip Tezuka as well. I don't think Vaughn Lee's really shown much of himself to really deserve a place in the UFC.
We now go to the big boys of the prelim card. which is sad because we're talking about middleweights. These are... My dog is snoring. Maybe if I put my microphone next to him, you can hear him. No, I just woke him up. When he snores again, I'll secretly put my microphone by his nose because he's a little dog. He's like 15 pounds. He's a King Charles Cavalier Spaniel, but he snores really loud.
You wouldn't have this problem with a cat, Rob.
Damn cat. We've been talking offline about how awesome dogs are and how much cats suck, and Tom agrees with me completely.
Oh, sure I do.
Middleweight fight, Thom Watson. Isn't he like a bluesy guy that does acting? Like, wasn't he in the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus? I swear there's a dude named Thom Watson in there that played the devil. 15-5, coming off of a loss to Brad Tavares. Back, also in England, in Nottingham. And he's facing off against Stanislav Nedkov, the lucky recipient of a no contest versus Thiago Silva. What do you think?
Well, I've actually had the pleasure of watching Thom Watson live, and that was in the complete destruction of Murillo Ninja Hua, where he just pretty much separated Ninja's kneecap from his leg. And I have to say, it was sad to see his UFC debut because I've always liked him as a fighter, but it just exposed him that he has absolutely no wrestling. I mean, if you give him the benefit of the doubt in his last fight against Brad Tavares, that was probably the best Brad Tavares we've ever seen, and he clearly improved his game. But there's a difference between going from local UK promotions, being the number one UK fighter fighting in England at the time, except for Michael Bisping, and then fighting in the UFC. It's a complete jump, and I'm just worried that he doesn't have the skill set to stay in the UFC.
You know, for a second there, when you were saying that you'd seen Thom Watson fight live and you saw him destroy Ninja, I was actually going to ring the fanboy alert. But then you backed off.
Yeah.
You backed off, so I don't have to. I think Stanislav Nedkov was beating Thiago Silva until he gassed. So I think he beats Thom Watson within 6 minutes.
Tom's a pretty tough guy. You got to give him the benefit of the doubt there, because he's kind of like got the fighter syndrome where he looks 10 years older than he is. He looks about 40, and he's only 30. But
you can say the exact same thing for the Bulgarian beast, Stanislav Nedkov, whose nickname is Stucky. That's a brilliant nickname. Mitchell? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he also has that wrestling name, just Stanislav Nedkov. That just reeks wrestler to me.
Yeah, it does. I think Nedkov in Bulgarian means pop your head off and eat it like a grape. Are you going with Watson on this?
No, I'm probably going to have to go for Nedkov on this.
So all of that, and you come back and agree with me.
Yeah.
Featherweights, Andy Ogle, a.k.a. Little Sloth from the Goonies, versus Josh Grisby. Now, when you hear a name like Josh Grisby, just tell me you don't want to break out into song. Eleanor Rigby.
No, what I was thinking was, with a name like Andy Ogle, he's got to come from the north, you know, and I look at his page, and what do I see? Newcastle upon Tyne. You can't get any more north than that. Literally, border of Scotland north.
I think you just lost everyone that wasn't English. Why when you see Andy Ogle, and to me I want to say Ogle, because he's ogling me. Why do you think... First off, I agree with you. He looks like a northerner, because he's not white, he's light blue. But why, when you see his name, do you as a Brit think, oh, he's a northerner?
It's just like, just pronouncing it, I can do it, kind of pronounce it in this voice, like, oh, I'm Andy Ogle, I want to fight, I'm a fighter.
Yeah.
I kind of went Australian there, but...
Yeah, maybe the Aussies are all northern criminals.
Yeah. Well, the north is full of them. Ooh.
Ooh. Somewhere, someone not listening to this podcast in the north gives a shit. Who do you think, Andy or Josh?
Oh, I'm going to have to go for Andy. Even though he's a northerner, I'm going to have to go with him.
I also go for Ogle, just because Grisby is on a 3-fight losing streak.
And that's the exact reason for me as well.
The next fight, lightweights, Paul Sass. I don't even know if I think that's an American song I just did.
Yeah.
Versus Danny Castillo. The Sass angle.
Yeah.
What do you think?
the famous Sass angle. Well, Paul Sass, in my opinion, was very, very unlucky in his last fight because he got caught in an armbar against the cage, and the cage was blocking his escape route. And he's going to be going up against another jiu-jitsu fighter who's one belt above him, but although I have to say Paul Sass has shown to me that he's, well, not black belt, but he probably deserves more than a purple belt because he is very good off his back. And he has multiple submission victories, and I'm probably going to have to go for Paul Sass on this. But I wouldn't be surprised if Danny Costello's jiu-jitsu was that enough to hold off the submission attempts from Paul Sass and probably edge out the unanimous decision.
This is a tough one because Castillo has a nice record. He has fought basically his entire career in the WEC and the UFC. He's 14-5. He came off of a loss to Michael Johnson, Black Zillion wrestler, one-dimensional. Whereas Sass is, I think he's 13-1 coming off of that loss that you mentioned to Matt Wyman. Man, I'm going to go with Paul Sass just because he's fighting in his home country.
Well, he did lose in his home country.
Well, he's here to revenge that loss.
Yeah.
Where's he from? Is he from the north?
Yeah, he's from the north.
Liverpool, is that north?
Yeah, I think it's he fights at a Team Cabon, I think. Yeah, Liverpool, yeah. Exactly right, where most of the fighters who need subtitles to understand them live.
Wonderful. Next, the last prelim fight, Terry Etim versus Renan Forte. Clearly, they thought this was like UFC Paris. What do you think?
Well, I think Renan Forte is actually a Brazilian fighter who has...
I'm just saying his name sounds French.
Yeah, I can understand. Terry Etim coming off that horrible, horrible knockout loss against Edson Barboza, and his face just looked like it got crushed by Barboza's heel, actually. But I think he's going to make a comeback in this fight and get back on the win column. I think he's going to take out Renan Forte just for the fact that Renan Forte doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
So you're subscribing to the lucky rule of Wiki.
I am indeed.
I'm also going to go with Terry Etim. It has been over a year since he fought. Apparently it took that long for them to find his jawbone out of the crowd and reattach it to his face. Terry! The main card on Fuel TV starts off with welterweights Che Mills versus Weed Boy Matthew Riddle.
It's Shea Mills, Robert Curtis, and he is very, very beautiful, which is implied in his nickname.
Oh, okay. I thought we were having like a no-homo moment. And he's got a little accent mark over it. Shea.
Yep.
Shea. No, I'm going to go with Che, and your name is Thom. All right, what do you think about this fight? Che is 15-5 with one no contest, and he's fighting Matthew Riddle. Matthew Riddle has a sick record, 7-3-1 with no contest. Sick.
Well, Matthew Riddle is a wrestler, but I actually just took a look at the press conference he gave, and he said he's not going to go in there and just grapple him and get him down to the ground. He says he's willing to stand and bang. Oh my god, I think he's just made the biggest mistake of his career, because Shea Mills is an absolute destroyer on the feet. The only problem he had in the UFC was his fight against Rory McDonald, and he lost that through Rory just dismantling him. But come the fuck on, it's Rory McDonald, and he was thrown into the rules against that fight, and I have never forgiven the UFC for that, because that was his second fight
in the UFC. Yeah Come the fuck on, he says. And he just took out Dwayne Ludwig. I'm also going to go with Shea Mills,
the beautiful.
That is a terrible nickname. Terrible. Now we get to the real big boys of the card, the light heavyweights. James Tahuna, Oceania's finest. Me being in Australia, we claim Kiwis when it comes to mixed martial arts. versus what I have to assume is a good old boy, Ryan Jimmo. With a name like Jimmo, I would think he would be from like Georgia, but he's actually Canadian. Canadian rednecks.
Oh, Ryan Jimmo. He was the guy that gave Anthony Perosh the stroke face, wasn't he? How could we forget that?
7 seconds. 7 seconds.
Wasn't that the fastest UFC knockout?
I think Ludwig's got it in 5, right?
Ah, right. Okay, yeah.
But among his scalps, he also has Marvin Eastman, Wilson Gouveia, Sokoju. I'm kind of wondering if Sokoju is like herpes. It seems like everyone's had a turn on him.
Who hasn't destroyed Sokoju?
Who hasn't had herpes? What I say?
You know, I'm kind of edging towards the Kiwi just because, you know, he has the Maori blood. The Maori blood that creates world champions like the Rugby World Cup winning All Blacks team.
Yes. I like me some Aussie Kiwi love. He has gotten he lost to Gustafsson via rear naked choke, but other than that, he's taken out Igor Pokrajic, Ricardo Romero, Aaron Rosa, and Joey Beltran. This is going to be a very good fight. Do you like excitement?
Yeah. New Zealand makes great kickboxers, and for crying out loud, Mark Hunter's the best chin in MMA, and that's his Maori blood.
Yes. And they are like 6 or 7 generations removed from eating the dead of their enemies.
Yeah.
They are absolute warriors. Go watch a haka on YouTube and then tell me you can't pick James Tahuna. Of course, now that we say that, James Tahuna will tap the strikes. Welterweight, Gunnar Nelson versus Jorge Santiago. Gunnar Nelson, what do you think?
Gunnar Nelson, in my opinion, is probably the hottest prospect outside of Rory McDonald at welterweight. He is pretty much a welterweight version of Lyoto Machida, but with fantastic fucking jiu-jitsu. Renzo Gracie is up in arms about this kid. He is such an incredible... He is an Abu Dhabi competitor. He's black belt under Renzo Gracie, so you know it's not one of those handed out black belts that most other jiu-jitsu coaches give out. I've got to go for Gunnar Nelson on this.
Gunnar Nelson has 2 gold medals in the Pan American Championships for BJJ. No gi and gi. He has 1 on each. He is Icelandic, which means he's Viking by association.
Yep.
With a name like Gunnar Nelson, and his let me try this. His middle name Ludwig. One of those, what are they called? Fusark runes in there. I'm also going to go with Gunnar Nelson. I think, if I remember correctly, Santiago is a late-minute replacement, replacing Justin Edwards. So Gunnar Nelson, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what they say?
Well.
Is that what they say? Yeah.
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 No, that's in Swedish, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm going too German, I think. I knew a guy in graduate school that was from Iceland, and he wore like Tiva sandals, you know, those sandals with the Velcro straps, with socks, with white socks pulled up past his calves. That's what I think of when I think of Iceland. Iceland, there's... And you know what? I won't even tell you the difference between Iceland and Greenland, because nobody probably cares. All right. The lightweights are up next. Jimmy Manoa versus Cyril Diabate. And to my surprise, Jimmy Manoa is not another Kiwi. With a name like Jimmy Manoa, whose middle name is Taluki, how can this guy not be wearing a lei and dancing in a hula skirt at a nice pig roast in Hawaii? Turns out, he's Nigerian.
And like those Kiwis that you Australians like to steal, this is a Nigerian-born that we are now claiming as English.
That's right. He's yours.
Yep. And oh my god, what a beast. He has had 12 wins, 11 by knockout, the other by submission. I think this is probably one of the best finishes we'll see that's just entered the UFC.
Yes. Submission was, apparently he bit off his opponent's nose.
And he smashed Carl Kingsbury's eyes until it was closed shut.
Yeah, that's actually, when you look at that picture on Google of Kingsbury's face, you kind of look at his eye as like a zit that's ready to explode.
Yeah.
Cyril Diabate, though, has looked pretty good. He's coming off of a nice win over Chad Griggs at UFC 154.
Yeah, but I think he's going to try and stand with him, and in my opinion, I think he's the light heavyweight version of Czech Congo. He's just this padded kickboxing record of his, and he's been knocked out before, and I think Jimmy Mano is a finisher, and I think he's going to knock him out again, probably send him on Queer Street.
This is Are you saying this because Cyril Diabate is French?
Yeah, and that's not the Anglo-French rivalry creeping in there.
No, not at all.
Not at
I
all.
do think Cyril does have 6 submission victories. So I think he's probably a better grappler. And if he were smart, and he's French, so that's debatable, he would take this to the ground and gas out Jimmy Manoa, because Manoa is carrying a lot of muscle. He's one of those beefy guys.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to go with Cyril. I'm going to go with Cyril Diabate.
Okay.
And if that costs us our friendship, so be it. Next fight, featherweights, Cub Swanson versus Dustin Poirier. My question for you is Cub Swanson washed up?
No, he had that brutal knockout of Ross Pearson like a few months ago, and I think he's trying to work his way into title contention again as well. At the press conference, he did say that he was more focused and he wasn't going to fight as recklessly as he had before. So I think he's getting there. I think he's working his way back up.
Well, just every time, maybe washed up's not the right term. Maybe
Yeah.
he has hit the limit of his skill and style, and it's just not good enough. Every time he fights an elite guy, Pulver, Aldo, Mendez, Lamas, he loses.
Yeah.
He gets like a nice win over Ross Pearson, who is still bathed in English glory after destroying George Soteropoulos. George Roop, Charles Oliveira, Mackin Sermerzier, John Franchi, those types of people he beats. But when it comes to elite level competition, which I have to say Dustin Poirier is probably a part of, he loses. I've got Poirier in this.
Is he the featherweight version of Michael Bisping?
Who, Poirier or Cub Swanson?
Cub.
I don't know. Are all of the people that Cub Swanson loses to using TRT?
No, I'm just saying like top 10 opponent.
Yeah,
Top 6.
I mean, he's probably pretty close. I don't know stylistically they're not.
Yeah, not
Bisping is
stylistically.
way more cautious than Swanson. I think this will be a good fight, but I think Poirier will win it.
I'm probably going to go for Cub on this. I want to see Cub win this, and I think he has the skill set to take it.
With a name like Cub, he's kind of, you have to cheer for him. I was in the
Yeah.
Cub Scouts, so I
So
feel like
was I.
I feel like
Be prepared,
really they have
Rob.
that in England?
Yeah, we invented it.
Oh, here we go.
Baden Powell. Look him up, Rob.
Oh Lord. Now you're going to tell me that you guys invented, I don't know, like Parliament. or you're going to tell me you invented meat pies. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Good one.
Ale,
and
sure.
warm beer.
Cellar temperature, Rob.
Cellar
It's a
temperature, Rob.
difference.
I knew you were going to say that. All right. The final fight, Renan Barao, the interim champion, as Dominic Cruz continues to snap every ligament and tendon in his body, facing off against Michael McDonald. What do you think?
Sorry, that was my Michael McDonald impression.
Renan Barao has a freakishly good record. 29-1 with 1 no contest. Here are the people he has walked through since he's been in the UFC. Uriah Faber, Scott Jorgensen, Brad Pickett, Cole Escovedo, Chris Curiaso, and going all the way back to WC, and Anthony Leone. That is amazing. He is legitimately the guy that's going to take... I think he's the guy that's going to really push Dominic Cruz. And he'll probably beat Dominic Cruz because Dominic Cruz, like I said, is going to have to fight on crutches.
Yeah, I agree. In my opinion, Renan Barao is pretty much the weight class below version of Jose Aldo. He comes from Nueva União. He has that Muay Thai. He has the sick sprawls that they have. They have fucking fantastic wrestling coaches there, and it's probably the best camp in South America at the moment. I've got Renan Barao in this fight, and I have to say also, thank you UFC for finally giving us a fucking main event worthy fight, because we have had for the past 4 years we have had fucking fights like Michael Bisping versus Yoshihiro Akiyama. How the hell?
Yeah, when you say give us, you mean England, just to be clear. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. The comparisons with Aldo, I think, are quite on point, because Renan Barao, with that freakish record, 29-1, he's only 25, and he actually said that if Aldo goes to lightweight, he'll move up too.
Yeah.
He'll go up to featherweight.
I don't think he might have as much success at featherweight, but he's definitely a beast at bantamweight.
Is McDonald worth talking about here? I mean, he's 22, he's 15-1, but he's faced guys like, let's face it, Miguel Torres is no longer the fighter he once was. He's almost had a year off from fighting. Other fights that he's had, Alex Soto, Chris Curiaso, Edwin Figueroa. He fought Cole Escovedo at Tachi Palace fights. Manny Tapia. So I think he's a contender, but I think he just got put in with the Sharks.
Yeah, I don't want to say he was the next champion, because Renan Barao's probably going to be holding that belt for a very long time, but he's definitely a hot prospect at bantamweight. I think you're right, it's too early for him. And I think I'm not going to say Renan Barao's going to destroy him, but I think Renan Barao is just going to edge over him.
There was this period in the UFC's history where wrestlers dominated everything. You know, Matt Hughes, Couture, so on and so forth. And it seems like lately, and you could even count GSP as one of those guys, because he has a striking background, but he's a wrestler. He fights like a wrestler, particularly after the Matt Serra loss. And being Canadian, he's like a cousin. He's a North American cousin to the United States. But it seems like lately, within the last 5 years, there's been this influx of hyper-athletic Brazilian killers with great hips. And I mean hips in their sprawl. And you've got guys like, I mean, I don't know if Silva so much has great hips, but he's hyper-athletic and he's Brazilian. And then you got Aldo. You had Junior Dos Santos as a heavyweight, and Renan Barao. Is the Brazilian reign of terror just beginning, or is it just like we have 1 or 2, 3 really exceptional guys? Because I kind of feel like every time we see the next crop of Brazilian guys, I'm like, man, these dudes look crazy good. Like Diego, the guy from The Ultimate Fighter that won Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem... Well, no, sorry, it's not a problem. It's what's happened is... I mean, MMA was already big in Brazil, we know, but the UFC has only just started promoting events in there, and they've been throwing these championship fights, and they've been inspiring young people to take up MMA. With the decline in the Brazilian soccer team, I think MMA might overtake soccer as the national sport of Brazil.
So you're saying guys like Renan Barao and Aldo would have been professional soccer players at some level.
Yeah.
Or maybe they would have been Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purists like a Maia.
Yeah.
That just refused to go over and fight in the Vale Tudo blood pits. But because of because you've got this smiling picture of Anderson Silva selling you burgers on commercials now, they're like, you know what? I want some of that action.
Yeah.
So you think, like, even more so than before, a floodgate of Brazilian talent, a massive country, over 100 million people, are going to flood into the UFC?
Yeah, I think, well, not flood, because they've got enough social problems back there, but I think we're going to see a
But that's where the best fighters come from,
yeah,
to be honest. That's why all your fighters in England come from the north, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that, but...
This is a perfect time to segue into something. Because if we're going to be talking about the rise of British fighters... I'm sorry, the rise of... that was funny. If we're going to talk about the rise of Brazilian fighters... Good show, old boy, good show. If we're going to talk about the rise of Brazilian fighters at the expense of American ones, then we kind of have to talk about the IOC.
Oh, vent out your anger, Rob. Vent it
I
out.
am pretty upset by this. For those of you that have been, living in seclusion with Amish people, the IOC has taken wrestling, that includes freestyle and Greco, out of the 2020 Olympics. Wrestling, the first human sport. Wrestling, 2,700 years of Olympic competition. Like, they were there when the Olympics started. Wrestling, the very thing that makes Russians, Americans, Canadians great at mixed martial arts. If wrestling is no longer an Olympic sport, and you've got guys like Rory McDonald that aren't wrestlers, they're training quote-unquote MMA, is that going to crush the United States' advantage over other countries because we just won't have the pedigree of athlete, we won't have the diversity of people participating so that we get the people, you need 1 million people, or you need 1 million wrestlers to produce a Cael Sanderson, for instance. Is this going to crush the United States in mixed martial arts and let Brazil dominate for the foreseeable future? What do you think?
It's a real shame what's happened, and I think we may see a decline in wrestling, the candidates and competitors, but I think there'll still be a place for American mixed martial artists. They may pick up something else.
Right, but you'll get guys like a Darren Cruikshank, guys that have
Yeah.
like karate, taekwondo, and a little bit of wrestling background, or a guy like Rory McDonald. You will not have guys like John Jones, or GSP, or Johnny Hendricks,
No.
or Josh Koscheck, or
Daniel
Uriah
Cormier.
Faber, or Daniel Cormier, or Dan Henderson. You know what I mean? These are all-time greats.
Yeah, and what does it say about these camps that are specifically wrestling camps, camps like Team Quest? What does it mean for them?
I think in the short term, like I know, for instance, John Smith. He is a legendary wrestler. I think he was a 3-time NCAA champion and 2-time Olympian, 2-time gold medalist, I should say. And now he is currently the head coach of the Oklahoma State Cowboys, my alma mater. Moment of silence. All right. He has always encouraged his wrestlers to do the Olympics first. If they're good enough to do the Olympics, you should do that. And then if you can't do that, or you're done with the Olympics, then go into MMA. That's what Daniel Cormier did, Oklahoma State guy. But now that the Olympics might be off the table, that will change these traditionalist coaches' points of view and just tell the wrestlers, listen, go make money, because there's no Olympic option. So maybe in the short term, that influx into MMA will bring even greater style wrestlers. Like if Cael Sanderson could not go into the Olympics, what would he have been as a mixed martial artist? Have we ever seen a wrestler of his caliber in mixed martial arts? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
If Alexander Karelin, Russian god of Greco, hadn't had the Olympics to occupy his time, would he have gone fully into MMA? He fought one MMA fight. Have we ever seen a wrestler of his caliber in MMA? No. You know what I'm saying? So there might be an influx of talent, and if the UFC continues to grow and people see that wrestling is the key, the foundational art to be ultimately hyper successful, then maybe wrestling will continue. But for it to not be in the Olympics is an absolute travesty. I'm fairly strongly opinion on that.
I don't have as much knowledge on you on that part, Rob.
Well, I grew up in Oklahoma, and wrestling is a religion there.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how. I didn't wrestle, but I would go and watch high school wrestling meets because most of my friends were wrestling. And don't get me wrong, they whooped my tail whenever we would goof around. In fact, my dear buddy Michael Moore, I believe he wrestled at 124 in high school. He put me in a headlock and choked me out while I was underwater. And he thought it was hilarious. That's the kind of guy you want fighting for you in the UFC. Heartless, cruel. You don't want guys like me that are gargling lake water in their mouth crying for help. You don't want me in the UFC. Not wrestling. Let's look back on the card for a second. Pick, what do you think will be submission of the night? I have a suggestion. I have a thought where you might go with this. What do you think will be knockout of the night? What do you think will be fight of the night?
Submission of the night, there's only one I'm going to have to go for, and that's Gunnar Nelson.
I was going to go Paul Sass.
Gunnar Nelson's got more of the chance, though, to win the fight, though.
And he's also on the main card.
Yeah.
Knockout of the night.
Knockout. There's only one, and I'm going to have to go for Jimmy Manuwa.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to say the winner of James Tahuna or Ryan Jimmo.
Fair fight. There's a lot of knockout artists on this card.
There really are. I mean, it's England.
Yep.
You expect them to be good with the old fisticuffs.
Yep.
A bit of the rough and tumble. And what do you think we fight of the night?
Fight of the night. I'm going to go Shea Mills, Matt Riddle.
I'm going to go Cub Swanson, Dustin Poirier.
Ooh,
I think
Renan Barao.
I think Renan Barao will overwhelm Michael McDonald.
I think that'll be probably a unanimous decision victory. Complete all the cards on Renan Barao.
Yeah, or a late submission because Michael McDonald will be barely able to stand. I think Renan Barao is in another class. Well, that is the card. Tommy will return next week to help us review it. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you think we're stupid, or if you love my beautiful Oklahoma accent or English Tom's home county's accent. Let us know whatever's on your mind. We're here. If you have emotional problems, relationship advice, we're here to answer your questions. In fact, we're here in whatever capacity you need us. With that being said, I bid you adieu. English Tom.
It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye. Farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. Good night. See you guys.